deck surface with some lacquer thinner. Do the decks of the heads as well, then get all of the head bolts together from their bin to be prepared. If your head bolts go into holes that have solid bottoms to them, you only need to put engine oil on the threads and on the undersides of the heads of the bolts themselves. If any of your head bolts go into holes that extend into the water jacket, you absolutely have to put some non-hardening sealer, or better yet, some ARP thread sealer, onto the threads of the bolts to keep the water from leaking past the threads. Of course, they will need some oil or assembly lube on the underside of the bolt heads as well. Grab the head gaskets from your set and follow any labels printed or stamped on them. Gaskets with no labels can be placed with either side up. Just double check that for every hole in the block or heads, there's a hole in the gasket. Composition gaskets like these two don't get any sealant on either side, but a metal shim gasket gets an even coat of sealer sprayed on both sides of it with something like a high-tech spray-on gasket sealer.
Now you can gently lay your head on the alignment dowels of the block and start threading in the bolts. Pay close attention if you have a few different sizes of head bolts. Also, have the safety pin in the stand installed to keep the weight of one head from spinning the engine upside down until it's balanced out with the other head. Go through each bolt on the heads and make them hand tight with a wrench. Of course, we have to torque to the first of 3 increments and then reset the wrench. Keep in mind that most cylinder heads require that you torque these bolts in a certain sequence. Most heads have a similar sequence to this engine, and you should start from somewhere in the center and work your way in a spiral pattern to the outer bolts. If your engine has its own pattern, we might have it listed at boxwrench.net, or you could check in your repair manual. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of which bolts you did and didn't do. Just keep in mind how many total bolts you have and count as you go. When you get to what you think is your last bolt in the sequence, if your count is 1 short, then you'll know that you missed one. You should double check regardless, especially when you get to the final torquing spec. Once the heads are on, we can finish off the valve train.
If your motor uses rocker studs or push rod guide plates, you'll need to put them on now. Then get your valve train organizer tray close by. In almost every